Good day, class. Okay, so good day. Afternoon naman ngayon sa akin. So, let's resume or let's continue our discussion now. This time, sa chapter 2 naman tayo, which is the taxes, tax laws, and tax administration. Okay, so, tulad lang din ng previous chapter or previous discussions natin, this is more on theoretical. So, medyo maliit lang ang may i-add ko. Pero, yun nga, theoretical kasi. So let's start. So we have the objective for this chapter. We have should know, at the end of our discussion, you should know the type of taxation laws, the distinction among tax laws, revenue regulations and rulings, the tax and its elements and classifications, distinction of tax from similar items, tax systems and its types, the principles of sound tax system, how tax is administered, the power of the Bureau of Internal Revenue or BIR and the Commissioner of Internal Revenue, and the non-delegated powers of the CIR. And last is the criteria for selection of large taxpayers. So, yun yung mga objective natin for this chapter. So, our first topic is yung taxation laws and its types. Okay, so when we say taxation law, it refers to any law that arises from the exercise of the taxation power of the state. Okay, so was obviously taxation law from the word taxation. So any law na considered or any law na in regards to the taxation. So we have two types of taxation laws. We have your tax laws and tax exemption laws. So the tax laws, these are laws that provide assessment and collection of taxes. So ito yung mga tax laws natin na nagpo-provide kung magkano matatax, kung ano ang natatax, right? So if it is progressive, it is fixed, if it is fixed, so all of those are tackled under sa tax laws. So the examples of tax laws, we have the National Internal Revenue Code or the NIRC. We have your tariff and custom code, your local tax code, the real property tax code, and the latest, yung train law. So all of those all are examples of tax laws. The next type of taxation law is yung tax exemption law. So unlike sa tax laws na ito yung laws na nagpro-provide ng mga tax, so yung tax exemption law, ito ang laws na nagka-grant ng certain immunity from taxation. So yung tax laws, ito yung laws na nagpro-provide ng mga tax natin, while yung tax exemption, ito naman yung mga laws na nagpro-provide yung mga exemptions natin. Right? So example is the minimum wage law. Right? So under the law, kapag minimum wage ka, wala kang babayaran na tax. Right? So another is the BMBE or Barangay Micro Business Enterprise Law. So ito yung mga maliliit na businesses natin under sa barangay, so yung mga sari-sari stores. So under sa law, under mga sari-sari stores, right, hindi naman sila nagbabayad ng tax. And another type of tax exemption law is the Cooperative Development Act or the CDA. So all of those are tax exemption laws. Right? So yun yung mga types of taxation laws natin. So, ano yung mga sources of taxation laws? So, we have marami yung mga sources of taxation laws natin. We have, of course, the Constitution, the two statutes and presidential decrees, 3 judicial decisions or case laws, 4 executive orders and batas pambansa, case ng mga EOs. Next, administrative issuances. Okay, so local ordinances in regards to local taxes, tax treaties and conventions with foreign countries, and last yung revenue regulations. Okay, so let's focus on the administrative issuances. So we have 6 types of administrative issuances. Okay, so first is the revenue regulations. Okay, so revenue regulations, these are issuances signed by the Secretary. Issuances signed by the Secretary of Finance upon recommendation of the CIR or the Commissioner of Internal Revenue that specify, prescribe, or define rules and regulations for the effective enforcement of the provisions of the National Internal Revenue Code or the NIRC and related statutes. Okay, so yun yung revenue regulation. So again, this is all theoretical. So I can give an example of revenue regulations. So okay, so yung revenue regulations natin, these are formal pronouncements, right? Intended to clarify or explain the tax law and carry into effect its general provisions by providing details of administration and procedure. So revenue regulations has the force and effect of law. Even though meron siyang force and effect of law, it is not intended to expand or limit the application of law. Okay, so again, revenue regulation has the force and effect of a law. So bale parang law na rin ang revenue regulation kasi nga these are like explanations, right, of the CIR explanations. Pero even though it has the effect of law, it is not intended to expand or limit the application of law. So kung meron mang explanation ng CIR, right, it is like we follow them as like it is like part of the law. Pero if there is explanations na naglilimit ng if there are explanations by the CIR na naglilimit of the tax laws, right, then that explanation or that revenue regulation is void, meaning hindi na siya valid. Okay, so yun. The next one is the Revenue Memorandum Orders or RMOs. So, Revenue Memorandum Orders, these are issuances that provide directives or instructions, prescribe guidelines and outline processes, operations, activities, workflows, methods, and procedures necessary in the implementation of stated policies, goals, plans, and program of the Bureau in all areas of operations except audit. So, unlike yung revenue regulations right na para explanation ng CIR na na-sign ng Secretary of Finance, revenue memorandum orders are instructions or like instructions and instructions by the Bureau or BIR na nagsasabi ng detail ng methods or procedures that are necessary in the implementation of the stated policies, goals, objectives, and so on and so forth of the BIR. So, yun nga, these are more like instructions. So, next is the Revenue Memorandum Rulings. So, these are naman RMRs. Yun nga, rulings, opinions, and interpretations of the CIR with respect to the provision of the tax code. Okay, and the other tax laws as applied to a specific set of facts with or without established precedents and which the CIR may issue from time to time for the purpose of providing taxpayers guidance on the tax consequences in specified situations. Okay, BIR rulings therefore cannot contravene duly issued RMRs. Otherwise, the rulings are null and void. Okay, so rulings naman, unlike sa regulations, right, pero halos pares lang din sila sa regulations na they are more like more like explanation. Pero sa regulations kasi, it explains the rules, right? These are the the rules for the NIRC. While sa rulings, revenue memorandum rulings, this is the opinions or interpretation of the CIR, Commissioner of Internal Revenue, in regards to the tax laws. Okay, tax laws. So revenue regulations are more on the regulations, while rulings are the interpretations on the tax laws. Okay, so the next one, Revenue Memorandum Circulars, right, or the RMCs. These are issuances that publish pertinent and applicable portions as well as amplification of laws, rules, regulations, and precedents issued by the BIR and other agencies or offices. So, yun lang. There are no more explanations. So, yun lang. So, 5, Revenue Bulletins, so RBs. These refer to periodic periodic notices or issuances, and official announcements of the CIR or the Commissioner of Internal Revenue, okay, that consolidates the Bureau of Internal Revenue's position on certain specific issues of law uh, or administration in relation to the provision of the tax code, relevant tax laws, and other issuances for the guidance of the public. So revenue bulletins or RBs are more like announcements, right? So sabi doon, announcements, issuances, or notices. Okay, so like, isipin nyo na lang na para sa parang bulletin board na nandoon nakalagay yung mga announcements ng office or ng mga management. The same goes with revenue bulletins in which this is just the announcements of the CIR in regards to the BIR's position on certain topics or certain issues. Okay? And the last one, the last of type of administrative issuance is the BIR rulings. Okay, so BIR rulings are official positions of the Bureau to queries raised by taxpayers and other stakeholders relative to clarification and interpretation of tax laws. So yung BIR rulings, this is more like advisory. So this is more of an advice, right? Advised by the BIR, right? For the taxpayers. Okay. So dahil this is more like advice, this is not official. Right? So it can be reversed by the BIR at any point of time. Okay, so hindi siya katulad ng lahat ng ito na once na lahat ng mga ito na once na naisabi na, it is more like law, right? Especially the revenue regulation. So BIR rulings are more of like advisory or the information service para sa mga taxpayers natin. Okay, so let's move on now from the tax administrative issuances. So let's go to the nature of Philippine tax laws. Okay, nature of Philippine tax laws. So the nature of the Philippine tax laws. Okay, so our Philippine tax law kasi, the Philippine tax laws are civil. Okay, civil in nature and not political in nature. Okay, so they are effective even during periods of enemy occupation. So hindi necessary na kailangan government natin ang nagpro-preside sa Philippines para mag-take effect ang Philippine tax laws. They are in effect even during enemy occupation, and any payments made during the occupation of the enemies are valid. Okay, so yun nga, this is in regards to the lifeblood doctrine na it is a necessary part of any government. So even na nasakop na tayo, right? For example, even if nasakop na tayo ng let's say China, okay? Imagine mo nasakop na tayo ng China. Tapos meron kang dapat bayaran na tax, right? Even if you pay that specific tax during the reign of the Chinese government dito sa Philippines, it is still valid, right? Kasi nga, our Philippine tax law is civil in nature and not political, so it does not depend on the politics inside the Philippines. Okay? So yun ang ibig sabihin ng civil and not political in nature. Our internal revenue laws naman are not penal in nature because they do not define crime. Okay, so our internal revenue, to be specific, internal revenue are not penal in nature. So they do not constitute crime. So even though merong penalty naman, even though merong penalty ang tax laws natin, ang internal revenues natin, they are not penal in nature kasi nga even if because they are not they do not define crime. Pero yung mga penalties, right? 'Di ba meron namang penalties. Yung mga penalties, they just serve as a means to secure taxpayers' compliance, right? Kasi nga, if there is no penalty, then it is hard to convince taxpayers to pay their tax, right? Kasi bakit ba ako magbabayad kung wala namang penalty pala, right? So even though ang internal revenue natin is penal in nature, we still have penalties. Okay, so next, the elements of a valid tax. These elements of a valid tax, like so in order for a tax law, right, in order for a tax or tax law to be valid, it must have these elements. So tax must be levied by the taxing power having jurisdiction over the object of taxation. The next, tax must not violate constitutional and inherent limitations. So that is obvious naman, kaya nga meron tayong limitation para hindi ma-violate ng isang tax, right? So for example, if nakalagay doon na nakalagay sa inherent limitation na hindi sa international committee na hindi dapat natin hindi natin pwedeng i-tax ang other countries or other states. So a tax law that taxes other states are of course not valid, right? Kasi nga it violates the inherent limitation of tax. Number 3, tax must be uniform and equitable. So even we say uniform and equitable, it means that yun nga sa horizontal and vertical equity, right? So a people with the same tax base should be taxed the same. Pero we should also take into consideration their specific circumstance. Kasi nga hindi naman tayo magkakapareho ng circumstance, right? So number 4, tax must be for public purpose. Okay, so uh, tax is always for public purpose. Okay, so hindi sometimes for public purpose, hindi most of the time. It is always. Okay, so if the tax law if a tax law is implemented, it should be for public purpose. Number 5, tax must be proportional in character. Okay, so it must be proportional. And 6, tax is generally payable in money. Okay, so ang tax natin, hindi tayo pwede magbayad ng property. Right? If we have a tax payable, we should pay it through money. So that is obvious naman. So here, next is the classification of taxes. So as to purpose, you have your fiscal or revenue tax, regulatory, and sumptuary. Okay, so kapag sinasabi natin fiscal or revenue tax, this is a tax imposed for general purpose. While regulatory, this is tax imposed for to regulate business, conduct, acts, or transactions. So this is for to regulate nga, right? So from the word regulator, I regulate the regulatory, so it is for regulatory purposes. Number 3, yung sumptuary, this is a tax levied to achieve some social or economic objective. Okay? So, all of this, depende sa purpose nila, right? So, ang fiscal or revenue, this is for general purpose. Regulatory is for regulations purposes. Sumptuary is to achieve some social or economic objectives. Okay, letter B, as to subject matter, we have personal, poll or capitation, property, and excise or privilege tax. So, personal, poll or capitation, these are tax on persons who are residents of a particular territory. Okay, so kapag yun nga, tinataksan ang mga taga-Bigan, right? So for example, right, that is a personal tax. So yun nga, wala na akong mai-add kasi nga that's just the definition. So residents of a particular territory. Number 2, property tax. So, instead of persons, dito sa personal, yung property tax, syempre, is tax on properties, real or personal. So, if it is for properties, kung ang property man is real property, for example, land, building, or personal property, or yung movable property. So, yun, as long as the object is as long as a specific taxes object is a property, that we call that property tax. Number 3, excise or privilege tax. So these are tax imposed upon the performance of an act, enjoyment of a privilege, or engagement in an occupation. Right? So, in regards, di ba yung personal, this is for people, property, this is for property, syempre. What excise, this is for the performance or the act of doing. Okay, so kung may, if a tax, if a tax is, if a tax is, a taxes object is, is in regards to a performance of a thing, right, we call that excise tax. So example of excise tax, right, taxes on tobacco products, for example. So you might be wondering, tobacco products is like, about sa tingin nyo, property tax, like, right? So no, that is an excise tax. Kasi it is taxing the privilege of the people to 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 smoke, right? It is taxing the privilege of people to smoke. So as we all know, hindi naman favorable para sa community natin ang smoking, right? So, in regards to the privilege of smoking, the government will tax you, right? So we call that excise tax. So property tax, very naman, kapag meron ka, kapag ang specific property. While sa personal tax, ito yung mga income tax natin, right? So kapag ang income tax, this is taxed on the person na may income mismo. So income tax is a example of a personal tax. So next example natin is as to incidents. So we have direct tax or indirect tax. Direct tax, this when both the impact or incidence of taxation rest upon the same taxpayer. So yun yung direct, kapag ang impact and incidence rest upon the same taxpayer. The tax is collected if what we mean by the impact and incidence is that the tax is collected from the person who is intended to pay the same. Okay, so kung sino man yung dapat, kung sino man yung intended na magbabayad, siya yung magbabayad. Okay? The example of the direct tax is, again, your income tax. Right? Kung meron kang income tax, that income tax is directed or is intended for you to pay. Tapos ikaw talaga yung magbabayad, right, ng income tax. So yun yung income tax. Yun yung direct tax. The indirect tax naman, when the tax is paid by any other person other than the one who is intended to pay the same. So, right, kapag ang indirect tax naman, iba yung magbabayad, tapos iba yung intended na magbabayad. Okay? So the most popular example of indirect tax is value-added tax or VAT. So value-added tax, the value-added tax is intended for the seller, right? Intended for the seller na magbayad dapat. Pero in essence, ang value-added tax, yung buyer ang nagbabayad, right? So kapag meron tayong pino-purchase na products, meron siyang kasamang value-added tax. Kasi nga, tayo mga buyer ang nagbabayad ng value-added tax ng binili natin. So, tayo yung nagbayad, pero yung subject na sa value-added tax is the seller. So, that is an example of indirect tax. Last, as to amount, we have specific tax and ad valorem tax. So, specific tax, a tax of a fixed amount imposed on a per unit basis such as per kilo, liter, or meter. And number two, ad valorem, this is a tax of a fixed proportion imposed upon the value of a tax object. Okay, so, uh, example of specific tax, right? So, specific tax, this is based on per unit basis. So, an example is uh, an excise tax on alcohol may be based on their per liter. So, for example, excise tax of 20 pesos per liter on distilled alcohol. So, that is a type of specific tax kasi yung tax is based on the per liter basis. While ad valorem tax is basis naman niya is the value. So, example naman is excise tax on distilled alcohol again, pero this time instead of basing it on the per liter, it is based on the net retail price. Okay, so based on the net retail price, the distilled alcohol is taxed like let's say 20%. So yung 20% na yun dahil base niya is net retail price, it is based on the value of the distilled alcohol. It is a type of ad valorem tax. Okay. As to rate, we have your proportional tax, progressive and graduated tax, regressive tax, and mixed tax. When we say proportional tax, it is a flat or fixed rate. So, an example of proportional tax is the corporate income tax. So, ang income tax ng mga corporations natin is flat na 30%. So, hindi magbabago yung tax rate nila. So, that is an example of proportional tax. When we say naman progressive and graduated tax, as the tax base increases, the tax rate also increases, okay? So, an example of progressive and graduated tax is our income tax. So, income tax natin, habang lumalaki yung income natin, mas lumalaki din yung tax rate natin, right? So, for example, kapag 200, this is only an example kapag 250,000 yung yearly income mo, magbabayad ka ng 10%. Kapag 500,000 naman, 15%, and so on and so forth. So, kapag lumalaki yung tax base natin, mas lumalaki din yung tax rate natin. So, that's why we call that progressive. The next one is regressive. So, regressive, this is just the opposite of progressive. So, as the tax base increases, the tax rate decreases. So, this directly violates the constitutional guarantee of progressive taxation. So, we are not using regressive taxation kasi nga, they say that regressive tax is anti-poor, right? Anti-poor kasi nga, imagine mo, the higher your income, the lower your tax rate. So, it is not fair for the people na maliit lang yung income nila kasi mas malaki yung tax rate nila. So, it is anti-poor, tawag sa regressive tax. So, we are not using this. So, the next is mixed tax. So, this tax manifest tax rate, which is a combination of any of the above types of tax. So, any combination of this, either proportional and progressive dito sa Philippines kasi wala naman tayong regressive tax. Okay, so last na ito and last na for our discussion for today. So as to imposing authority. So imposing authority, we have the national tax and the local tax. Of course, national tax, this is a tax imposed by the national government, while local tax, this is a tax imposed by, of course, the municipal or local government. So examples of national tax is the income tax. So income tax is imposed by the national government. Next is the estate tax. Okay, estate is kapag yung namatay ka, kapag namatay ka, yung property mo na leave behind mo, you will call that the estate. So that is an estate tax. Estate tax, yun yung basis nila. Donor's tax, kapag mayroon kang donation, merong limit. Tapos, if you pass the certain limit, you are subject to donor's tax. Okay, so value-added tax or VAT, it is also a type of national tax. Okay, and so on and so forth. So, the examples of local tax naman, we have your real property tax. So, this is a type of property tax. Professional tax, okay, and business taxes, fees, and charges. So, yung mga binabayaran nilang business tax, this is based on the municipal or local government. Right? So merong mga uh, local government, merong mga local government na sobrang mayaman due to their local taxes and of course the taxpayers of them. So merong mga parts sa Manila na dahil sa mga businesses doon and dahil sa mga local taxes nila, they are earning a significant amount of revenue. Okay, so yun. So yun lang muna ang discussion natin for today. So we will end at the classification of taxes. Okay? So yun. I will be sending you this PowerPoint. Tapos just take down what yung mga sinabi ko na lang. Okay, so thank you class for listening. Have a good day and goodbye.